Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
It is Friday, April 17th, 2020. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live, steps and steps and steps and steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Trump gives states permission to reopen as infections about to hit the Midwest. Meanwhile, yesterday saw a record 4,600 deaths in this country from COVID-19. Stimulus checks failed to reach up to 21 million people. And that Small Business Paycheck Protection Act, it reached only 4% of the applicants. And now it's over. Dems' plan to defend Biden on China looks about as hapless as it could. In Michigan, a Betsy DeVos-backed group stages AstroTurf protests. And new information shows that ex-Governor Schneider knew a lot more about the poisoning of water in Flint than he let on. Disgraced lawyer of disgraced President Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, to be released from prison over coronavirus fears. Polls show Americans think Trump acted too slowly in responding to this crisis. And lastly, congratulations. Coronavirus is not the only thing that we should be worried about. March 2020 was the second warmest on record on the planet in all the time we have taken such records. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I think I was remiss at the beginning of the show when I did not announce that Ben Dixon from the Benjamin Dixon program will be here with us. I hope you're well and your week is going well and you've been able to stay safe and relatively sane. My favorite meme I have seen this week, friend sent me. It was basically a cup of coffee handing off a baton to a glass of liquor. Every day, all day was the title. And I sort of feel like I'm beginning to settle into something like that. Have you guys been, Matt, Brendan is here. Have you guys been finding that you've been drinking more than normal, or Matt, in your case? Are you?
Well, yeah, I'm staying away from alcohol because that hurts your immune system. So I go with more natural remedies.
Right.
Yeah, well, this is a virus that attacks the lungs. So, I mean, I hope you're doing edibles for your own sake.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. I don't know if I'm drinking more. It's hard to tell.
Everybody's turned into a mom during this thing, but what do you?
A lot of Mr. Coffee though, and I'm drinking MR Blend.
I've gone through almost a half a bag of that 5-pound bag.
I didn't realize how expensive it was. I was trying to buy more, but I was like, I got to get that stimulus check first.
It's a 5-pound bag it's a lot of coffee.
It is a lot of coffee.
I hope you used the coupon code. Majority got 10% off.
You bet.
All right. Let's check. We're in the midst of the weirdness is just layered on the weirdness, and it's going to get more and more bizarre as this thing goes on. And we'll talk more about this with Ben, but the long story short is the Trump administration now seems hell-bent in coming up with a series of excuses and laying the predicate for blame to be shifted off of the Trump administration. So, and that is both on a medical and an economic, I guess, tracks, if you will. From the medical one, it is been to blame China and to claim that this is largely overblown and to attempt to, like, we're rolling out roxychloroquine. I am saying, I'm not even gonna try. Which of course the FDA, apparently there's a new story out saying that they relaxed their standards so much that they have gotten subpar quality and sent it around the country. Meanwhile, some people are saying that they're dying from cardiac arrest. I don't know. We haven't seen anything really from a reliable medical source yet on this. I imagine they're still working on it. And then on the economic side of things, Trump is setting it up in such a way that when the economy, when we start to realize the implications of having lost 22 million jobs, and I think we're headed towards 40 within the next couple of weeks, and this starts to catch up, the question is, you know, who's going to get the blame for this? Now, maybe it's not all one person's fault, but Trump is trying to shift it onto those governors of blue states by both saying, like, they won't open up their economies. And in some instances, and we're seeing this in Michigan, and we're seeing this in Kentucky and North Carolina and Ohio, there are varying degrees of AstroTurf protesting. Michigan, of course, is of huge importance to the election, and they are trying to make it seem like Whitmer is overreacting to this, less, I think, to get her to open up the state and more to shift blame onto her when people feel some economic deprivation later. And so things are getting rather bizarre. Here is Sean Hannity trying to project that we could go to a situation where everything could be more or less normal. And he's been working on this. And apparently he's come up with and this is a clip from his TV show. Apparently the radio show was even more nuts. He's come up with an idea in which we could all coexist at a baseball arena.
And the game. Now, if I have the choice attending the game or not attending the game, I'm just speaking for myself. Consult your doctor. I'm not a doctor, but you must get the temperature.
He's not a doctor. He's not a health expert, but in the middle of a pandemic, he's going to float his plan to reopen Yankee Stadium and play ball. So consult your doctor. Go ahead.
Anyone that wants to attend a game. Now, if I have the choice attending the game or not attending the game, I'm just speaking for myself. Consult your doctor. I'm not a doctor, but you must get the temperature test to get into the Yankee Stadium. You get the temperature test. If you have a temperature, they give you information. You go to your doctor, be safe at home, how to do contact tracing. No, can't have a database. Got to respect medical privacy, but you can't be if you have a temperature going into any even outdoor stadium. Now, temporarily, again, not the best conditions, but if it's my choice and I have to wear gloves, a mask, okay, I'll wear it. I'd rather go and wear it. If everyone else is wearing it, we can suck it up for a couple of months until things have passed. Probably can't eat popcorn because you have to keep your mask off the whole time, but you probably could eat a hot dog. You open up your respirator, take a bite, and you chew it under your mask. I have to drink my beer if I'm at a game. So if I have to use a straw and slip it in, I'll do that. Whatever it takes to get my beer. I want to have a beer. Everyone's got to make their own decision. What is your appetite for any risk? You know, you get in a car, it's risk. You're going to have to decide, consult with your own doctor. I would rather have my temperature taken, drink beer from a straw, eat a hot dog by going like this and chewing it in a mask and not go at all. That's my decision. You make yours. Now, I'm pro-choice. I know this is not ideal, but if it's about saving the lives, especially of other people more vulnerable, and getting our economy back up and running full speed as quickly as possible, I'll suck it up. And I think a lot of New Yorkers would suck it up and want to go to the game, wear the mask and gloves, and maybe the Yankees and the Giants and Jets and Mets can make their own mask and hand them out as you go in with their emblems on it. I don't know, just an idea.
Now, I have a question about this clip. Was this actually broadcast, or was he just high in the studio talking to some of the crew there, just like kicking stuff around? Do we know?
This was live.
This was actually, he broadcast this out to people.
Yeah, this was at 9:24 last night.
So I'm going to just apply, let's say, just, I don't know, 60 seconds of thought to this. So what he's suggesting is that everybody lines up. I don't know if you've ever been to a Yankees game or any baseball game. Apparently he referred to it as a baseball arena on his, because he's got to have his beer. Well, second, but so imagine everybody is jam-packed in, waiting to get in line, or they're in line and they're going to go through the ticket thing. But of course, the ticket guy is going to have a thermometer. He's going to take the temperature. And of course, there's a lot of these people because there's, I don't know how many people get into Yankee Stadium. What is it, like 40,000? The new one? I don't know. More, maybe. They're going to take the temperature of everybody. And for the, I don't know, like the 1,000 that are bound to have a temperature, or 500, or I don't know, 5,000, I don't know what. Those people are just going to walk around amongst everybody else with the temperature, because you don't want to have them come into the arena, as it were, because, you know, if they have a temperature, they could be infected. So instead, we'll just have them walk like, okay, you take my temperature. Oh, no, sorry, we can't let you in. Okay, I'm just going to walk back through this sea of people behind me complaining loudly. Like, God, I can't believe they're not letting me in because I have a temperature, and spitting all over people. And then presumably the Yankees are going to hand out all the latex gloves, right? And the proper masks that are going to help everybody. And they'll probably brand it, you know, Yankees, like you said, on the top there. And then who's going to police how everybody goes around and eats their hot dog? Like, one of the things that you really shouldn't do is have your mask halfway on, because then you're fumbling with it with your hands. And if the mask is doing its job and you happen to be infected, it's all on the inside of the mask. And so now it's all in your hands. Yeah, I'll take that hot dog. Thank you. Hey, you're doing a great job. I really appreciate it. Let me shake your hand. I mean,
don't forget some ketchup or mustard. From
right. The ketchup and mustard. And then he's got to have his beer. He's got to have his beer. He's at the game. He needs his beer. What do you think the last time he went to a game where he wasn't in a skybox too? But it just occurred to me, he's just going to be in a skybox. He doesn't need to wear his mask and give me a break. Yeah. But the idea is, like, you got to be responsible and protect people around you. This is sheer insanity. It's sheer insanity. What he's, I don't know. I mean, he's just ruminating, I guess. And that's why it would have been fine if we had one of those satellite feeds where it picks it up in between the actual broadcast. And we played that. I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I mean, we always do stuff like that around the office, talk about silly, insane stuff that we would never say on air. But apparently that's not what it was.
I mean, I miss sports too, but I just say bargaining is stage 3 of the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. And I don't think that sports are going to come back as soon as Sean wants them to.
No. And the thing is he keeps couching it. And it's like, you got to be responsible for other people. I think New Yorkers would be fine with the mask and the gloves. You know, this is actually a fascinating thing I learned this week. I'm not in Michigan, obviously, so I'm not at the protest. And this happened, I think, just before the protest. But I did a podcast for Politicon. They do they have their own podcast now. And it was something to the effect of like the name of the podcast, and people should, check it out by all means. Can we just get along? I think it was. And on the show, where is this now? On the show is yeah, it's how the heck are we going to get along? And it was Trey Aiken. Isn't he like some type of music guy or something?
Clay Aiken was on
Clay.
American Idol.
Okay.
Like way back.
Okay, yeah, he was the host. I don't know. And the one guy was Glenn Jacobs. He is the mayor of Knox County. Apparently, he's also I don't know. According to Brendan, he's a wrestler, or was in Tennessee. Ellie Mistel was on, and we recently had him out as a guest on this program. And then a woman named Alicia Krause, who is, I guess, a Daily Wire and a former Sean Hannity producer. And she lives in California now, I guess, but she's from Oklahoma. She's Noki. And the guy from Tennessee says, we started like, what's the big story this week? And the guy from Tennessee just starts saying that, like, well, everybody's talking about the abridgment of our First Amendment rights. And I'm like, what? And he's, this right to assemble is being inhibited by overreach. And I just, the idea that is part of the story, that this guy perceives that as the main story that's going on, I think just shows the level of, I don't even know if you would call it the dislocation. And I don't even think it's necessarily polarization. This whole thing is fracturing the country even more. Now, I think he's going to have a different opinion on the abridgment of First Amendment rights when the virus hits Tennessee and his constituents start seeing images of hospitals being overrun there because they only have 2 ICU beds. But I found it fascinating that there's a sort of like alternate narrative that's going on the right, which is, we're being oppressed because we can't go out and catch this disease on our own. Go out, go catch the disease. There's other people are not going to people are not going to go out to a Yankees game. It's going to be Sean Hannity sitting in a skybox looking down on empty seats as the team plays. He's out of his mind. He's out of his mind. All right, quick plugs and notices. Well, no, you know what? Let's go to Ben Dixon and then we'll do the plugs and notices a little right after he's on. Do we have Ben? Can we bring him up? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the proprietor of the Benjamin Dixon Show, Ben Dixon. Ben, are you there?
I'm here. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
Do we have no image of Ben?
There we go.
Oh, there we go. There you go. Ben, welcome to the program. So, obviously a lot to talk about today. We're basically following two different tracks on some level. It is the maybe 3, the medical and economic implications of what's happening with coronavirus, and then sort of this parallel track of the election. Yeah. But let's jump in here. I don't know. Where should we start? Should we talk about the unemployment numbers that we had this week? We're now at 22 million. That was as of last week. We get
22 million as of yesterday. I think we had 5 million more become unemployed since the previous week. So we're at 22 million as of yesterday.
22 million, but that number is people who filed last week.
The week,
so
yes.
We don't know as of
what's
today
happening right now. Right.
How many people have filed. We won't know until next Thursday.
Right.
But it's hard to imagine this number is going to get dramatically smaller because as time goes on, a lot of these businesses, they just can't keep up. And we have the results now from this Paycheck Protection Act. And 95.4% of small businesses got zero.
Right.
It served only 1.4 million small business owners. 30 million small businesses apparently in the country. It's just a failure. And, you know, I was talking to someone who was worried. I mean, I'm worried about it too. You know, my kid's 529. It's not necessarily huge, but it's something. So I'm trying to save for their college.
Right.
And it occurred to me that there's really one or two ways this goes. It is one, the fact that the government was able to open the spigots for the Fed, $4 trillion, props up essentially the stock market, because these major corporations all have a tremendous amount of money. They do nothing for everybody else, and they don't care that it's completely untethered. And when we come out the other side of this, there's just going to be, there's an exaggeration, but the point being made, there's like 5 big companies, and that's it. And everybody else is just going to be basically, tapped for energy to, you know, as a life force to support those things. And, you know, I just don't see any move to support like everything else that's happening. Right.
I mean, it seems rather self-destructive. Okay, so the Fed obviously is propping up the markets, propping up corporations, the buyouts, the bailouts rather. That's going on, but we have the participation, right, of the average consumer has dropped precipitously. Like, people can't go out and consume, and this is why we're seeing the layoffs that we're seeing. Like, we can't. That's why you see so many people on Fox News, on mainstream media, particularly Fox News to be specific, begging for people to go back out, because there's so many other industries that were so dependent on people just going out and consuming every single day. And now we can't do that. So who's benefiting from that obviously is like online outlets like Amazon. And so I think you're right. We're going to see even more of a stratification in terms of the industries that are thriving, the monopolies that are thriving. And then the rest of us are just going to be here, just simply trying to find bread to eat. But they have found a way to operate this economy without taking care of the people and just leaving us out here with the virus.
Right. It's all been financial help and not fiscal spending help, as it were. And I mean, I think I saw even there was a White House, like a restaurant commission, and all the restaurants on it were chains. Yes. Like, you know, the idea of like independent restaurants are going to be kaput. There's not going to be any help for these people.
Yeah. And so again, this makes me beg the question, like, what are they doing here? Because it's not as though the solution that they're employing right now is sustainable in the long run, right? This is not tenable in the long run. You can't have 22 million people be unemployed, and by the time this is over, I think estimates of upwards of 40 million be unemployed and have no path for them during this pandemic, let alone after the pandemic, and expect this system to not, you know, collapse and implode underneath its own stress. But that's the way they're operating. And mind you, it's really both parties are really, who's even talking about those 22 million people right now? Who's even talking about the fact that 9 million of them lost their health insurance? And that's just the individual. We're not even talking about the households that lost health insurance at the beginning of a pandemic. So I don't know if there is a strategy other than just grab all that they can right now with the bailouts.
I'm sort of shocked by the whole thing, and I think that it seems like it's unsustainable. I know that Kana and Warren have come out with a plan that is not quite as generous as Sanders, but you know, is getting some attention in terms of like providing. I think it was maybe, I don't know how much, $1,600, $1,800 a month until the crisis abates.
Right.
And, you know, which is the only way to do this, is you've got to have those sort of like automatic provisions.
Right.
Because if you don't benchmark it to sort of milestones that show that the economy is improving, in the event that the president ends up being a Democrat, the Republicans are just going to stand in the way of it. They're not going to allow for it. Yeah. But aside from that, you know, like this Cobra expansion thing is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane. It is like the desire to protect
Right.
the system as it
Exactly.
stands now
Yeah.
at all costs. And it's not it's cost borne by people and maybe, taxpayers, but
Yeah.
the desire to maintain it is shocking.
It shows a level of commitment that even the Democrats have. Like, I'm not really in the business of trying to draw equivalences between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, but this is one, right? They're so Nancy Pelosi is proposing that we open up the coffers and basically subsidize the private insurance companies during a pandemic, when the solution obviously is at some, even if it's a temporary Medicare for all solution, right? Whatever, it's not writing a big blank check to insurance companies to prop them up even more. I mean, the cost of COBRA is so exorbitant, man. I don't know if anyone in your audience, I'm sure somebody in your audience has tried to sign up for COBRA, and it's an insult to injury. Not only did you lose your job, but now your cost for healthcare is like obscenely high, like $1,800 a month, as if you could afford that even when you were working.
Yeah, it's nuts. And I do think that, like, you could expand Medicaid. I mean, I don't understand why they don't, the Democrats at least don't push it as an idea. Right. I mean, just from sheer politics, but you could expand Medicaid, and I guess theoretically the Republican states could refuse to take it. Right. But that, that's pretty clearly on them. I think they're afraid of doing it on a temporary basis because I think they're afraid that people are going to be like, hey, wait a second.
Yes, exactly.
Why can't we do this on a permanent basis?
Sam, I swear to God, I think that's what it is. Because listen, the things that we need to survive this pandemic, and mind you, like we've sheltered in place, and it looks like if we continue sheltering in place at the pace that we are, that we're going to flatten the curve enough to not have millions of people die. Right. But the way for us to successfully continue to suppress that curve, flatten that curve, is to give us things that will kind of awaken the body politic to be like, okay, wait a minute. The government could have been doing this all along. You mean I could have had insurance without it being tied to my employer all along? You mean they could write us a check and we could have a universal basic income so that we're not starving in between jobs all along? And I think, honestly, their behavior pattern suggests that they are more terrified of the body politic being awakened to what we could potentially really do in this country. They're more terrified of that than millions of people potentially dying. As you can see, they're pushing. I mean, even Joe Biden's language on Twitter earlier this week, talking about in the New York, I forgot where he wrote his op-ed in. I think it was the New York Times, but talking about reopening America, and of course he laid out some guidelines for it. But just that language at this juncture, when we're nowhere near the point where we can safely reopen the country, it just suggests to me that they are more willing to risk lives than they are risking America really realizing what we can do as a society.
Yeah, I think that they are so desperately afraid of offering anything,
right?
Because there is a desperate desire to sit on the sidelines through this entire fiasco and election.
And it's even like to argue a point that you kind of alluded to there. It's bad politics. If the Democrats really wanted to win, they have a couple of slam dunks at their disposal right now, right? Of course, the Senate is not going to approve any of these things, right? But that's how you play politics. Like, put it on the table. Show the people that you're actually fighting for them. Let Republicans turn it down. Let them not pass it. Let Mitch McConnell not even bring it up, and go on every single network talking about it nonstop. But instead, the Speaker of the House is going on the Late Show talking about her ice cream.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a belief, and I feel like I'm repeating myself now ad nauseum, but I think there is a belief, and I imagine in different people who share this belief, it is driven, it is more or less ideological as well, that, you don't give this guy any rope, or you give him plenty of rope to hang himself, but you do not make this election about choosing between two things, right? I mean, and you make it about voting against a referendum on Donald Trump. And if we offer anything, I mean, it's so bizarre. I mean, because the idea is that we can offer expansion of COBRA, right? Like you say, $1,800 a person, I mean, over $24,000 for a family of 3 or 4 over the course of a year.
Mm-hmm.
For us to pay that money as a society is just an enormous, we're writing an enormous check.
Right.
It's just huge. And we're giving it all to, we're building nothing with it. We're building nothing with it.
Right.
We're not building any type of system. We're not doing anything. We're just giving it to insurance companies, and they're going to, their profits will be just sort of, enormous. But nobody will complain about that. They will not get attacked from the right about that. And they won't get attacked by as many quarters, and they won't get attacked by big money because they're paying off the insurance companies.
Right.
Whereas they could do something that is far more rational by any stretch of the imagination, which is we're automatically putting people on Medicaid. If you've lost your job, all you need to do is fill out one box. Don't have employer health care anymore. Boom, you're on Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
And you are Medicaid eligible. And if the state won't cover you, then I don't know what you can do at that point. If you're the federal government, maybe there's another mechanism to do it, but the Medicaid could happen right away.
Yeah.
And it would be cheaper. Yes. But I think that they're afraid of being accused of being socialists in the middle of this. And it is ridiculous. The whole attitude. Joe Biden conceded the other day that I can't win Donald Trump's base. Who cares? They're 45% of the country.
Right.
Do the math.
Right.
Do the math.
Yeah. No, so it's a level of commitment to an ideology. I agree with you on that, because I think they firmly believe these things, and they don't want to risk, from the Democratic side, they don't want to risk being seen as socialist or anything of that nature. But the funny thing about it is they may very well get outflanked from the left from somebody like Donald Trump, who will seize the opportunity to say, okay, well, even if it's just some type of temporary fix, even if he floats it and the House goes against it, which they never will, because then what would they look like, turning down something like a temporary Medicare for all, or like you said, a Medicaid expansion just for the pandemic. Like, if Donald Trump has no ideological center other than his self-aggrandizement. So it's a good possibility that he, like writing his name on the check, right? It doesn't mean anything philosophically other than it's going to be a check in the hands of the people that now they feel like they got directly from Donald Trump. It's smart politics. And at this point, the Democratic Party, not only are they not doing what's in the best interest for humanity, they're not doing what's in the best interest for their own self-preservation. And people are getting paid good money to give them bad advice. I mean, the consulting class is really raking it up right now, and they're really going to help Joe Biden lose his election.
That to me seems like the best job you could possibly have in this environment. Like, you just sit at home, give you, basically do what you and I do, provide commentary, but then also get some type of like commission on ad buys.
Obscene commission. I mean, the state ad buys for a Senate race is into the millions of dollars. Imagine what they're doing on this presidential race. And then the commercials, I'm sorry, you just kind of kicked in my consultant head, Brian. The commercials coming from Joe Biden's camp, it's going to be a long general election. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it is. And what I'm also interested in is what's going on now with these protests. Michigan is the biggest one. And that is the most obvious. The explanation for that is the most obvious, right? I mean, there's multiple things going on there. There's a racial dynamic, a huge racial dynamic in Michigan between, sort of the rural and suburbs, and then the cities. That's a big part of it. I think another big part of it, and we should talk about this in a moment, is Whitmer is, I think, on, the short or medium-sized list to become a vice presidential pick. Michigan, of course, one of 3 states that were the swing states in 2016, and Wisconsin right now. If I'm the Republicans, I'm a little worried about Wisconsin, because I tried to get everybody killed to get a Supreme Court seat that I couldn't get.
Right.
Although that same Supreme Court Justice Kelly has said that he's going to stay, that he is willing now to sit in on a case that he recused himself from 6 months ago, which will essentially purge 200,000 people from the voter rolls in Wisconsin. So Michigan is a key battleground state. Betsy DeVos funded organization, some like Tea Party type of thing,
Right.
is staging these AstroTurf protests, saying that Whitmer is, shutting down and ruining Michigan by protecting people from the coronavirus. And clearly that is an attempt to win Michigan, right? And they're doing these protests. We're seeing them in Kentucky. Mitch McConnell needs them bad, and there's a Democratic governor there. We're seeing them in Ohio, which is a little bit surprising. But DeWine was closed it down very quickly. He's reopening it, and I'm not quite sure. I don't have a theory about Ohio, but certainly in North Carolina, they're protesting the Democratic governor there, and Tom Tillis is in big trouble. What's your sense of these protests and where it's all going?
I mean, it's very strategically laid out, right? This is their extension of politics, and this is their way of weakening this is their way of generating some fury that's countering the fury that's being presented towards Donald Trump, right? They have to find a way to stir the animus because quite rightfully so, everyone should be infuriated by how Donald Trump is handling this. And so the push is to say, okay, it really wasn't as bad as everyone thinks it was. We really can go back to work. And it may not have been a hoax, right? But it really was just a hysteria. And so this is an extension of that. And quite honestly, it's exactly what Republicans need to latch onto to not become disillusioned with the fact that the president of the United States has put so many people's lives at risk. So it's really a smart play. I mean, we think of Republicans as being dumb because their arguments are sometimes so bereft of any substance that you really question if they have any intelligence at all. But they're very astute in their political machinations. They know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, this just reminds me of the Tea Party movement. It reminds me of even like the Brooks Brothers mob in Florida. Like,
oh yeah,
you got all these, John Roberts is one of those guys. I like to remind people. All these guys in suits, protesting and creating the sense of anger. And they know that if they can show the anger is more on one side.
Yes.
And, or make it appear that the anger is more on one side, then it changes the nature of the conversation. I don't think that's happening in the mainstream, but it is, I think, in many respects, a way of making sure that they deliver their base at the very least.
Right.
And hope they get lucky.
Right. And that's what they really need. Right. So, I mean, there's so many things that are happening. November is going to be totally different than I think anyone is really considering in the Democratic establishment. Right. Because chances are we won't have this pandemic completely under control in November, where people are going to go out and vote in numbers that are comparable to any other year. Right. The suppression of the vote is going to be significant if we don't get mail-in ballots secured across the country. That's number one. I know Kamala Harris is working on that, but we don't see a full court press from the entire.
That has to be a completely non-negotiable part of when the House approaches phase 4 of the stimulus. It's just, it's going to say, like, we're not showing up otherwise.
Right. I mean, it absolutely has to be, but we don't see that unified press building up from the powerful people in the Democratic Party. And again, I'm kind of thrown off because I don't know what their strategy is if it's not to just lose, right? It has to be their strategy is to lose because every decision that they're making up to this point is doing that. Because here's how it plays out. If we don't secure mail-in ballots, then it really only is going to take the smallest portion of Donald Trump's base to win, because who's going to go out in the middle of a pandemic when chances are a couple of people say on the Democratic side, oh, I'll put on a hazmat suit. Sounds cute. They'll crawl through glass. That sounds cute. But the majority of people will not risk their lives to go participate in a political system that doesn't care about them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see any indication that the Democrats are serious about this. I mean, one of the things that Nancy Pelosi has done has been specifically not develop an apparatus for people to be able to vote. And is just doing unanimous consent. I guess they do that on some type of group phone call or something. I don't know how that happens, but and it is concerning because it is a way of basically making everybody give them cover to vote for a bad bill.
Right.
And it just decreases accountability. We don't know who's voting for it and who's not.
Yeah.
And people can talk about it afterwards or they can talk about it before, but it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
unanimous consent. All in favor? Aye. The ayes carry. Boom. I mean, that's it. It's over. And so it's highly, highly problematic. And all right, let's just pivot to who you think. Joe Biden's talking about developing a cabinet, and there are organizations out there. I think there are organizations out there that are starting to push to make sure that certain people aren't picked, which is good. And like so much of this process, on some level, Obama taught activists and people on the outside the implications of who is on the transition team. And, you know, like it was Froman who ended up being the trade guy who did push PPP, but Froman was from Citigroup, and he is the one who basically helped staff the Obama administration, and Citigroup did. And in this instance, I think people are smarter about it and they're paying attention. There are organizations that are doing it. Maybe we should have somebody on, you know, like Jeff Hauser over at the Open Door Initiative that comes out of EPI. He's doing stuff like this. I imagine there's a lot of these organizations. Everybody pays attention to the VP. That's going to be particularly important this time around because of Joe Biden's durability, let's say. But what's your sense of what's happening?
I think, okay, so you're absolutely right. What we went through with Barack Obama, that's when I realized Barack Obama wasn't who we thought he was, right? As soon as we saw we didn't find out until after the fact that Citigroup was doing all the vetting, but you could see it in real time when Rahm Emanuel and then Timothy Geithner. For me, when I saw Timothy Geithner, I said, oh, okay, I see what the game was the whole time. But we'll see how effective it is, right? Because I think we have in Joe Biden, and particularly the people who surround him, I think we have people who believe that they are above the backlash of activists and of people on the ground, of these organizations. I feel like they honestly believe that they can stick it to us and stick anyone in those positions that they want to. The jury is out on that. We'll see. Like I said, I don't know how this election plays out because the coronavirus and the backdrop really changes the dynamics of everything. But I do know some of the people that are around Joe Biden, and I just don't think they give a damn what any activist groups have to say about it. And I think that they should tread carefully because I think the last thing that they need to do, in addition to alienating Bernie Sanders supporters, is to alienate people who otherwise would find a way to convince themselves to support Joe Biden. But particularly like in the, watching the VP race, I think he has some landmines there that's really, I think it's a no-win situation for him on that one because there's so many people pulling really hard for Kamala Harris and Stacey Abrams. I don't think Georgia is a swing state yet. I think it's almost a swing state, but it's not one yet. California is definitely not a swing state. And so that really does put Klobuchar and Whitmer particularly in play, but that backfires spectacularly because a lot of the African-American support for Joe Biden was based on the idea that there will be an African-American or a woman of color VP pick.
And not to mention, Whitmer and Klobuchar are on that, in terms of that list, are on the right side of that list.
Yes, very much so.
Harris, I don't consider Harris, on the left in any way, but I also don't think that she's really established any type of like in a politics, frankly. Yeah. I mean, I think she's sort of an open book. That's not necessarily a positive. It's just I don't think that she really has any politics other than she was a cop for a while and acted like one. But and Stacey Abrams, for that matter, I don't think is really, frankly, as progressive as people have this assumption she is. But again, also not so easy, to glean when she was running in Georgia. I'm with you on this. I don't know. And Elizabeth Warren's name is really being pushed right now as well. Mm-hmm. I am of the mind that he needs to pick he's already said he's going to pick a woman. I'm of the mind he needs to pick a woman of color.
Yes.
And
I think politically speaking, right? Like if you want to do some, you're going to lose. Joe Biden is going to have a problem with the black vote anyway, right? Hillary Clinton had a problem with it. If Joe Biden does not pick a black woman, a woman of color, then there's going to be a lot of people who turn on him. And even if they don't actively turn and work against him, they won't be motivated to go out and support him. So he's got some landmines to navigate. I have my daughter here who is insisting on my attention, but go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just got a text from my daughter who was trying to explain to me why I heard all this screaming because my daughter at this between the hours of 10:30 and noon is in charge of my son. And that's, this is all part of it now.
Yeah, so, this is part of our new world, right?
Exactly. Well, I mean, do you have a sense of who he's going to pick?
No, actually, and I'm sorry, Sam, I don't know if I want to give them good advice either. Like, you guys pick Joe Biden. I mean, let it all fall the way it's going to fall. I mean, I think conventional Democratic consulting is going to say either Klobuchar or Whitmer, right? And good luck with that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, look, first of all, the political science says there's no evidence that vice presidents help in their home states anymore.
Right.
And all you need to do is point to 2016, right? I mean, Tim Kaine was supposed to deliver Virginia. He didn't, right?
I can't recall, but I knew, I think there's, whether or not they help, they certainly hurt. Tim Kaine certainly hurt the ticket, especially when it came to the debates, when it came to just his position, his I don't have a better word for it right now than the lack of swagger. He was a cornball, and he really brought down the ticket ideologically as well. Like, he just was not an ideological addition to Hillary Clinton. But that's the type of thinking that goes in play with these Democratic consultants who honestly are getting paid tens of millions into the hundreds of millions of dollars combined to give bad advice. So I think people are really pulling for Kamala Harris on Twitter, but the Democratic consulting class are really about to sandbag them with someone who's going to help him lose.
Right. Clinton did win Virginia, and I think it was actually by about 5 points. And so, but I don't know that that's attributable to Tim Kaine. Right. I think the idea is that she was trying to signal, like, I'm good in the suburbs, right, with Tim Kaine. And I mean, I don't know. I don't envy him having to make that pick. I mean, I guess the obvious one is Harris, and I would imagine that's the way he's going to go. But I'm not terribly thrilled about that. I mean, I think from a from the actual politics, I would rather have a Warren as VP, because at the very least, there's going to be some conduit to getting more left voices in there, arguably.
I think a Hail Mary would be like Barbara Lee. Someone floated that on Twitter today, and I thought about it.
I mean, frankly, Elizabeth Warren, I think, is too old too, because because she never herself is too old, but like I think that when you add up the ages of the two nominees of the ticket, it really should not top 120.
I did not realize Barbara Lee was that old. Like, I met her in person.
Lee, yes. Are you kidding? No way. It's just
but she doesn't. I mean, that's just kind of the benefit of our. Anyway, but I would have put her in her 60s. I definitely wouldn't put her at 73. But you're right. That's kind of aged out.
You just can't do it. I just don't think you can do it. And for a while I was thinking like Ayanna Pressley. I don't know that she has the experience or the gravitas at this point in her career, but
well, I think she has the career gravitas, maybe not, but just gravitas in general. I mean, she's a hard hitter. I think she can handle the debate. She can handle herself. She can comport herself. I actually hadn't even considered that. That's actually.
I mean, I haven't heard anybody ever float her name, but it just occurs to me that like, she endorsed Warren, so you'd bring that along. She's a member of the squad, so you would get that sort of cachet. I don't know.
I mean, she's not particularly viewed as the most progressive.
No, she's not.
But at this point, like I said, they don't give a damn about I don't think they honestly care about the progressive movement, and I don't think that's a smart move. But so that may just be kind of a Hail Mary that could salvage. But then again, like if you have to think in terms of a conventional Democratic consultant, they would be screaming at anyone suggesting Ayanna Pressley because she's from Massachusetts, which is not a swing state. So everyone is saying you got to get someone from a swing state, which, maybe, but this is a whole different ball game. This 2020 is different than any other year. And I don't think that they're making those calculations. I think the protest that we're seeing strategically across these states is probably going to be more impactful than a swing state VP pick, simply because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, I agree with that. What's your take on the, and maybe I don't want to get into this conversation, but your take on those that we've seen on Twitter anyways, who claim they will not be voting for Joe Biden because he doesn't, he's not,
honestly,
Bernie Sanders policies.
I've done this now. This is my second campaign doing politics, as a podcaster, right? So I was in the first wave in 2016. You get demoralized, right? It's very aggravating. The games, the bitterness. So I understand anyone who's at this point who's like, I'm not going to vote at all. I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. I get it. And I think the most important thing for them is to, if you ever want to stand a chance of convincing them otherwise, take a step back and let them breathe, Don't try to do like Mehdi Hassan did, which was attack them the very same day Bernie Sanders dropped out. You have these people with huge platforms attacking people who are demoralized. I mean, people flew across the country on their own dime to canvass for Bernie Sanders. You got to give these people space to vent and let them make the decisions for themselves. And then once they see that you respect them enough to give them space to vent, then maybe you can convince them otherwise. Of course, Donald Trump is worse than Joe Biden, even if you just look at the coronavirus. I do not think that I know without a doubt Joe Biden administration would not have handled the coronavirus this way, and there would be probably thousands of people still alive. So I think things like that matter. I'm in Georgia, so it doesn't really matter what I'm going to do so much because I don't think we're a swing state yet. But I think we do need to give the Bernie supporters as much time as they need because they demanded we give Elizabeth Warren the time that she needed to make up her mind after Barack Obama made up his mind.
Right, exactly. Yes, I mean, I'm with you on this. I think it's very early. I mean, this is not 2016, and we're months away from the convention not happening, essentially.
Yeah.
And maybe it being a
Zoom convention.
Like a Zoom convention. And so I'm with you on that. I think that we've got plenty of time to talk about that, and I'm not terribly worried about it, frankly, to be honest with you. I think the bottom line is that there are people who are going to be wanting to come out and vote against Donald Trump, and if that's not enough to carry, I don't.
On the flip side of what you're saying, though, I don't think that they need to be worried about Bernie supporters who are disillusioned. That's a percentage that maybe they could ignore. I'm not going to say they can. Right. It's a risk. But who they can ignore are all these people who are newly unemployed, right? Who just got a stimulus check. And then some of them are going to get a physical check.
Didn't get a check.
Or didn't get a check, right? So they're in a bad spot and they don't believe either party is going to help them at all. But if they did get a check and they're going to get a physical check, it's going to be a check with Donald Trump's signature on it. I think that's much more significant in terms of how this is going to play out in November than whether or not Bernie supporters are angry or falling in line.
I agree. Let me just ask you, you're from Georgia. What is your opinion of Stacey Abrams?
You're asking me all the questions that are going to get me in trouble. I think Stacey is an accomplished politician. I think that I kind of admire the fact that she's unabashed with her ambition. Like most of the time when you ask somebody if they're running for office, they'll be like, oh, no, I'm just focusing on my job. Not Stacey Abrams. She was like, yeah, I'll run for president one day. That's refreshing. I don't know that I'm an absolute fan of it, but it is different. I think, again, she's an effective politician, and whether or not she's progressive or not, I mean, what is progressive? We dig down into it. I'm really filibustering here. That's all I have to say about Stacey Abrams.
There's a lot of ambition there. I mean, I don't know if I've run into somebody who's like not less than like twice removed from going to a house party that she put together at one point somewhere or something like that. I mean, it's a bit of exaggeration, but yeah. I mean, I think
listen, I would vote if she ran for governor. Like, I voted for her against Kemp, so obviously I would vote for her against any Republican on any given day. And so that's it. There you go.
Right. I mean, that is, and also, in the context of Georgia, your expectations can't be as great as they would be if you're in California.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
That's just the fact. I mean, I think this, that's just a fact.
Yeah. The politics, obviously, like the machinations that she would have to go through in Georgia is going to be uniquely different than what Kamala would go through in California. We would hope that we could, kind of have some standard expectations, but, I think that's a good context to put it in, Sam, and I'm going to use that one going forward. All
right. Lastly, I'm just getting this across the transom. Maybe we can have Matt pop this up on the screen. You can check this out. We were talking about these protests that are going around the country that are funded by Betsy DeVos, and I'm sure others, but certainly the DeVos, Foundation. It is a group called, and this is, we had 3,000 people supposedly that showed up on Wednesday. A bunch of Proud Boys as well who were blocking traffic.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Michigan Freedom Fund is a nonprofit funded by the DeVos family. They are and also we're along with a Michigan Conservative Coalition. There's a lot of like paramilitary type of and quasi paramilitary and near paramilitary groups in Michigan. Michigan is just in many respects unto its own in terms of like what's happening out in the rural areas there. And on Twitter, here it is. Brendan, can you pop up this? Donald Trump is retweeting all of these hashtags: liberate Michigan, liberate all these different states. It's obviously a concerted effort to change the subject and to, and here's the thing. It's like, this is the problem, Ben, and here it is: liberate Minnesota. They're going after the states. Liberate Virginia. Liberate Michigan. They're going after the states that are perceived as like possible swing states.
Yeah.
And what's stunning about this is that and I would imagine on some level what the dynamic is that they know the governor there is not irresponsible enough to open things up for the sake of placating this. And so they do it anyways, specifically because of that. Because otherwise, like, we're just repeating what he did at the beginning of this. Now epidemiologists are showing models that suggest that had we shut down everything a week or two earlier, like 50,000 people's lives would have been saved. And that denial that he had at the beginning, that was just motivated by a fear of having a bad economy under his watch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, do we still have people in the country who are still genuinely believing this, that are in positions of power, or are they just like massaging it for political reasons?
That's a good question. Do they really believe this? Whether they believe it or not, I think they're willing to risk it actually happening. right? They're not going to go on television and constantly advocate for us to open things up unless they're willing to take the gamble that it would. I think I saw some polling out that there's a very small minority of even Republicans who think that it's time to actually go back in public and quote unquote reopen America. And so I think the ultimate result of this is really just going to be political, rallying the base, agitating a few people while giving some of their base. There's a portion of Donald Trump's base that knows that this is bullshit, right? And they know that this is dangerous and we don't need to do it, but they also need something to latch on to help them advocate for Trump, or rather advocate against like these governors. And so I think if nothing else, they're just giving them some cover, something for them to latch on to while the rest of the country goes through this pandemic, because otherwise it would be all hands on deck against Donald Trump, because the people who are dead, like you really can't overstate this. Donald Trump is responsible for quite a few people being, not just Donald Trump, I mean, Cuomo for that matter. There's a lot of leaders who, had they made better decisions, people would be alive right now. And I mean, every person who died has an entire family who feels that. And so I think that's a political calculation in itself. And the way that they have to rally their base around that is these liberation campaigns and it's really smart politics. I can't stress enough. Republicans are playing smart ball with, even if you think Donald Trump is a moron, he is leveraging his power in a significant way.
And I think part of what they're doing is setting a predicate for, when people start to feel the economic crash.
Yeah.
Because right now, I think everybody's just sort of at home, and there's this sense of like, well, maybe help is on the way. And I think we're, people, obviously, a tremendous amount of people are stressed. They've lost their jobs.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, and we're seeing all these layoffs, in terms of like, I still feel like we're in a state of shock on some level, and we're disoriented. And that,
I don't think it's reached all of us either. I think there's those of us who are comfortably at home.
Without a doubt. I think that's absolutely true. And I think it's, it's harder to tell that the deprivation is there until you start going out and seeing like, oh, there's, what is attributable to a lack of economic activity and what is attributable to like everybody staying home because of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
I think we're still collectively in a state of shock where the country does not realize, like, it's like, oh, I had no idea. I just lost a limb and I'm going around. Right. And I honestly feel like that's part of it. But so they're setting a predicate that they're hoping later they can draw on. And when people are looking around going like, what happened to our economy?
Yeah.
But this is interesting. Politico reporting that the mayor of Grand Island, Nebraska, is asking for a statewide stay-at-home order that the governor there insists is not needed. More than 1/3 of those tested for coronavirus in the surrounding county of Grand Island are positive. It's the 4th biggest city in Nebraska. Nebraska, incidentally, has also gotten like $397,000 per coronavirus case.
Jesus Christ.
That number is going to go down as the number of cases goes up. But there are new cases in Iowa, in South Dakota, in Nebraska. It's starting to spike. Grand Island, I think, has like, I don't know, a couple of ICU beds. This could hit there in the next week. Matt's saying that South Dakota is getting smashed. Like in a week from now, when people in South Dakota and people in Nebraska are, and Kowalski called in, one of our regular calls called in and said, like, it's starting to build. In a week from now, when they're watching the local news, and they're starting to hear that people are dying, and they're starting to see pictures coming out of this hospital, this could all change dramatically.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many, Twitter, liberate whatever Donald Trump puts out there. This could change dramatically. And then I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I
think part of us feels like I'm hoping for the best, right? I'm hoping that we did flatten that curve, but I think lingering in the backdrop is the fact that this still could get a whole lot worse. Yep. In fact, with the stuff that they're advocating for, it's going to cause it to get a whole lot worse. So I'd like to think that we were getting past the eye of the storm, but maybe we just have been comfortably sitting in it.
here's the thing, and I am trying to, not be a downer. And I think I have a natural tendency to be a downer in every context, not just on this program, to say. But once we flatten the curve, that's all well and good. But all that means is that we're not going to have hospitals that are overrun, that it's not going to be a trickle, but the flow of infections is going to remain constant and under our capacity to deal with it. But that's presuming we maintain where we're at.
Right.
Unless there's some other external factor that enters into the picture and changes the equation. And the only thing that can be is testing, is widespread testing.
Right.
And without that, I don't see how if we flatten the curve, then we go out in a week.
Right.
How we're not right back here with the exact same problem of trying to flatten the curve again within, I don't know, 6 to 10 weeks, maybe less, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I mean, part of the flattening, we're either in this for the long run until we actually get a vaccine, or we're just going to be in a vicious cycle. And I think, like we started the conversation off at the top, right? There is a way for us to be in this for the long run that is sustainable for individuals and is sustainable for some type of economy, right? It's unfortunate. The solution will still make Jeff Bezos really rich, right? Putting a universal basic income into the hands of people to consume from home is going to make Comcast really rich because we're going to be watching all the movies that they have.
But that's true. But if there is enough money that is given to support small businesses, okay, then and to maintain people, pay people to basically work at home, even if they can't do their jobs.
Yeah.
Pay companies to keep their people at home.
Yeah.
So that these businesses can exist afterwards.
Exactly.
Because what's happening, and I keep using this metaphor, and because it works, we're all under a yellow flag, except for this small group of businesses and financial institutions that basically, are getting fueled up and they're speeding around the racetrack. And when we're done with this, they're going to have lapped the rest of society in such a way that we will never, ever to catch up and create some type of parity. And so to the extent that we have this income inequality and wealth inequality and power inequality and political inequality that existed prior to this, it's going to be exponentially worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Ben,
Sam,
stay safe.
You do the same.
Say hi to your kids, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, man. Thanks
Folks
for having me.
can find your show on, what is it, patreon.com,
/ the BPD show, or they just follow me on Twitter. I tweet out the link quite often. At Benjamin P. Dixon.
All right. Thanks so much, Ben. I really appreciate it. Folks got to support shows like Ben's. Very important going through this. And I don't mean to be a downer. I try not to be, but it's I think it's my disposition. I don't know. Are you guys laughing?
It's also the calling, I feel like.
It's the what?
It's the calling. How can you not be a downer? It'd be weird to not be a downer these days.
Right. I mean, you would have to really sort of not be paying attention. I mean, that's what really struck me by that Politicon thing. And I should say, I haven't heard it. I lost power in the middle of it. Just like I was sitting here talking, and all of a sudden, like all the lights went off and it is super dark. And there was nowhere for me to go or do. There was nothing for me to do about it. And
that's going to be in the biopic.
Yeah, I tried to email them, and then eventually I got on, and I was, I got on, and the way I like to approach these things is when I'm talking to conservative is I start off nice. And so I had missed my whole transition period of when I start getting less nice. And so as soon as they had me on, I just started to rant. And but within like 10 seconds, I was already saying like, well, with all due respect to the mayor, And, because they're sitting there going like, the number one story is this abridgment of our First Amendment rights. And it's like, what? Are you out of your mind? And it's it's very convenient for them to say this because they are, not being subject to the massive amount of death and anxiety and concern that is, happening all around us now in this part of the country. But it will eventually get there, I think. All right. Let me do the plugs and notices because I got a quick one, and then what we'll do is we'll take some phone calls and maybe head into the fun half of the program. Just a couple of I have two today. One is from Matthew Film Guy. Didn't have him on this week, so I figured we'd do a little bit of a plug. He writes, my film appreciation class at the Central Queens JCC, now called Common Point Queens, is going online, and thus I can open it up to anyone with the technology to join. If any Majority Report listeners would like to join me and about a dozen other dedicated cinema lovers for a film discussion for 6 Tuesdays starting next week, $10 a class for non-members. Anyone can sign up at this link. It's at commonpointqueens.org. And then you look for the cultural arts and Jewish heritage classes. We'll put the link in our description. It's a film discussion group with film critic Matthew Weiss.
Do you have to be Jewish? One of the tribes?
It wouldn't hurt. No, you don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish at all. I can tell you, I don't think Matthew Weiss has ever celebrated Jewish holiday as far as I've known, as long as I've known him. But it's film discussion group with film critic Matthew Weiss. And it is 6 Tuesdays in the afternoon, $48 for a member, $60 for non-member. Links to films will be available the Friday before. So check that out. We'll put a link in the podcast description and the other. And if you are in Brooklyn, a farm kitchen. I'm not sure what the name of it. Thai Farm Kitchen in Brooklyn is delivering free meals to those in need during this time. Good for them. ThaiFarmKitchen.com. THAI. Farmkitchen.com is where you can get information on free meals if you need it in Brooklyn, in the South Brooklyn area, I think it is. So let's take a quick break. We're going to head into the fun half of the program. I will take your phone calls. We got a lot of sound to get to today. Just a reminder, folks, this program relies, and do we have Jamie? Jamie will hop on too. This program relies on you, its members, for its support and its existence. We're obviously, like everyone, frankly, going through this sort of total cratering of ad revenue. I can't quite tell if there's less ads. There may be, but apparently the CPMs for these things are significantly less. It's a Friday. We didn't have any ads from our podcast broker. I don't know how that works if they have already paid for those ads in advance, but the ads that we anticipate usually coming in haven't come in. We will be here. We are committed to being here every day. But, and again, we were able to send out a bunch of comps to people who need comps. If you're one of those people who you've lost your job or you anticipate a financial problem and you've been a member, head over, go through the cancellation process. We have a system automatically hooked up to hook you up. If you're someone who wants a membership but can't afford it, send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. And if you're one of those people who can, and you've always been thinking about joining, now's a great time to do so, because you're not only, making up for ad revenue for us, you're also helping out other people to get the show, and it's much appreciated. Also, check out the AM Quickie. He had an advertiser lined up, another one. I don't know what's going to happen with that. There may be one other that we found who can just, offset some of the costs of it. A lot of this is going to be treading water for a while. And check out the amquickie.com and justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Matt, who was on TMBS this week?
We had Paul O'Connell and Slavoj Žižek on, and Žižek had his laptop on his lap and a pillow behind him. It was a very interesting interview, so people might be interested in that.
Wait, what? He had his pillow behind him?
Žižek was very comfortable. It's kind of interesting. I think Thames Darwin said it looked very interesting on 2x speed. Because his laptop moved as he was talking into it. But it was a great interview. I mean, I liked both times we've had Žižek on. And then last night we had Adolf Reed on to talk about some third-party issues, but not in the way that we typically do. And then Medina Touré on to talk about NYC health in crisis. So those two bonus streams on the TMBS YouTube last night.
So check those out. Maybe it was because it's Passover. He's doing the pillow. Probably not, but
No.
Passover's now ended, incidentally. Also, check out the Nomi Keys Show. You can find it at youtube.com, the Nomi Keys Show. She's putting out videos every day, I think it looks like, or maybe every other day, more or less. Check that out. She's got a bunch of great guests and doing some commentary. Nobody gets into the mechanics of what's going on with the Democratic Party like Nomiki does. Nomiki. I don't know why I have such a problem with it. It's not just her name. It's just that her name is. It's for so long I called her Nomiki. And then I found out that I was pronouncing it wrong. And then it's very hard for me to unlearn that. Check out the Antifada. Jamie's on this week. Find it at patreon.com/the Antifada. And Literary Hangover. And plus, I'm hearing great things about the Twitch streams.
Yeah,
Matt.
twitch.tv/literary hangover. I was triumphant in 2 overtimes over David Griscom a couple nights ago. And thanks to that positive experience, I fully embraced the Twitch lifestyle. So go subscribe at twitch.tv/literary hangover. I'm going to be playing some Doom, playing some Red Dead Redemption, doing a lot of things. So go subscribe to that, folks.
All right, quick break, fun half. See you then. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457-238-56-27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy!
Dance, dance, dance. Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Back.
we are back. Sam Cedar on the Majority Report. Welcome to the show, folks. We have our phones are working at 646-257-3920. I hope they're working. You're calling from a 916 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, 916. I'm from Sacramento.
And what's your name?
Oh, my name is Steve Verdugo.
Well, you didn't have to give me your last name, Steve. Steve Blank. What's on your mind, Steve?
Yeah, probably a bad idea.
Yeah, not a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Steve,
Anyway,
what's
go ahead.
No, you. That's why you called in for a reason, Steve. I'm curious as to what it is.
Yeah. So I actually called in because I kind of wanted to talk to you about your views on GMOs.
Okay. Interesting
and so
timing.
I don't know if you still feel the same way about them because the videos that I looked up online were like 4 or like 6 years old.
My perception of GMOs has not changed. I don't think that that GMOs in and of themselves present any type of health risk. I think that it is, there is at least a theoretical argument that they can be very helpful. The nature of them, though, I think cannot be dislodged at this point from the political economics of it and the environmental problems that are associated with the way that these products have been made. So, in other words, when something is Roundup ready, we know that a tremendous amount of the toxic material used to kill everything around a Roundup ready product is highly toxic and problematic.
Mm-hmm.
We also know that there is that Monsanto, I think it's been acquired at this point, but I'm not sure. Owned, basically cornered the market on corn and soybeans and maybe other stuff, and I think that was highly problematic too. So, in that regard, my opinion has not changed.
Yeah, and the specific reason that, so you and I would agree that that the way that GMOs are being used is terrible.
Correct.
However, I just want to make it clear because I mean, like based on like the video that I saw, was that are you against GMOs being used? Do you think they could be used ethically?
Do I think they could be used ethically in a vacuum? Yeah.
Okay, because when I was watching the video, because it was a video about like this 14-year-old girl who was like who was supposedly destroying a Shark Tank guy with arguments against GMOs, and it kind of seemed like you were defending her points, like when she said that we ought to leave nature alone, that sort of thing. And so, like, do you disagree with that sentiment?
I mean, I think that is the idea that we should leave nature alone. I mean, I think there's a certain inevitability we're going to have to, do that, and that we don't do that in any other context, really. So I'm less concerned with that.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Great.
Because so you're not coming. And just to clarify again, you're not coming from a point that you believe that they may have unassociated risk, because, or actually, do you still believe that there are not enough independent studies?
To be honest with you, I haven't checked in on it recently, but at the time, certainly there had not been. And I do know that a lot of these studies, particularly ones that were supposedly saying that glyphosate, maybe I'm mispronouncing that, is safe, were funded by these companies.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another thing that I think is a little problematic, because I'm looking at there's something known as the Genetic Engineering Risk Atlas, it's sort of known as, like, it's a collection. It tries to sort of collect all the studies on GMOs about their risk factors, and it estimates that from about half the studies to 1/3 of the studies are actually independently funded.
Okay. I mean, half the studies to 1/3 of the studies. I mean, that's okay. And what's their definition of independently funded mean?
It actually doesn't say that. So
yes, that's interesting. I mean, let me put it this way. I would bet that some of those independent studies are studies that are done by universities who receive funding from a lot of these same companies. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that those exact studies are funded by these companies.
Right.
So, but I appreciate the phone call. Great.
And
No.
I actually have one more question that it actually isn't related to GMOs, but it actually is related to, like, it was a question about the Young Turks, if you want to answer.
Sure.
So I haven't really seen any responses from any other progressives talking about it, but I was curious on your on the TYTs. They're sort of like not accepting their union. That there's been controversy that they don't accept a union that's happening beneath them, or I mean not beneath them, but
I have not read anything else that has happened since that first initial story, and I think that I mean, my sense is, I'm unclear that they did not accept the union. My sense is that what happened was that Cenk did try and discourage people there from supporting a union, and I think that's wrong. I think you got to people express. I mean, it's not inconceivable to me. To be honest with you, I didn't dig into it because I think this story broke right as, like, all this coronavirus stuff came down. In fact, I had sort of forgotten about it, but from what I read, it appeared that the Young Turks wanted to know, like, what union and who wanted to unionize, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that they were reluctant to unionize as much as that story may have projected, but generically, so I can't really speak directly to this, but I can tell you generically speaking that I believe that employers should welcome unions, particularly, I mean, obviously for people on the left. I mean,
yeah, I was a little concerned because like I looked around, like I haven't seen Secular Talk mention it, and I haven't seen any, like, progressives.
I feel like we brought it up at the time. I don't know if we cut a video from it or not. To be honest with you, the way we do our show is a little bit different than most YouTube shows. But I'm fairly certain that we addressed it. But yeah, no, it's not good, but I'm not convinced that, and I haven't seen anything actually since then. So I don't know. It's something I'll check on, but I appreciate the call, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Look at that. Talking about GMOs. It's sort of nice, isn't it? Bring it back a little bit. Makes me feel a little sentimental. Let's go to 308. Who's this?
Hey, Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, Kowalski in Nebraska. So you called in, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and said that Grand Island was about to get hit, and apparently it is.
Yep, and it's pretty much all because of the meatpacking plant. A few other reasons too, like the city won't shut down or anything like that. But yeah, pretty bad.
What meatpacking plant is it?
JBS Swift.
This seems to be going around in all the meatpacking plants, and it seems to be a function of two things. One is the close proximity, and two, that these companies are so used to treating their employees like garbage that they don't even bother to provide them any type of like protective gear.
Yep, pretty much spot on.
How are people in the town reacting to it? I mean, presumably these people leave the plant, right? In associate.
So, like, my brother has a roommate who worked at the plant, and my sister-in-law advised my brother to tell him to stop going into work like 2 weeks ago. So he was fine. He's getting very bored, though. Some people have left. Other people can't. They need the money. Most of the people that work there are lower income, so they can't really, just leave. The city hasn't been taking it seriously for quite a while. Now people are starting to get masks and stuff, but like the ICU is full. We're moving patients to Lincoln and Omaha because their mayors actually shut those cities down. They're doing better. So yeah, it's getting hairy.
So Lincoln and Omaha had shut their cities down. When did they shut down?
They just simply took a more proactive approach at the city level, like public gatherings stopped sooner, businesses took it a little more seriously, and they don't have meatpacking plants or anything like that there. So like large numbers of people just wasn't happening as easily.
Right.
So the number of people in Douglas County is like maybe 350, 400,000 people. Hall County has maybe 65, and we have more cases than them.
That's interesting. It's, density is clearly the biggest factor, I think. I mean, we saw that with New York.
Yeah. So, things in GI aren't looking the greatest. So I was just calling in to say it was kind of interesting. You guys actually mentioned my hometown. I never thought that would happen.
Well, you made the big time in Politico. Congratulations. Not necessarily the way you wanted to.
No.
And how's the campaign going?
What was that?
How's the campaign going?
A little difficult when you can't physically go out and do a lot, but so far social media has been all right. A lot of emails, actually. So I kind of prefer that over Facebook. That place is a black hole of information. But it's not going too terrible. I guess the Secretary of State said they're not doing anything to change the election. So that should be interesting.
How are people doing there in terms of, I think it was it Nebraska that got the highest percentage of the PPP loans that were requested?
I haven't really looked into that all too much, but I think it has to do with the fact that the vice president and our governor have a really good relation. I know the Ricketts family has a lot of connections in like the Illinois, Indiana area. So
yeah, I think I saw something like 95% of applications got approved there, and something like 23% in New York and 23% in California. It's grotesque, but that's the way it's happening. Appreciate the call. Stay safe, Kowalski.
All right, everyone, hang in there, and don't forget my site's still up, votekowalski.com.
Votekowalski.com. Appreciate the call.
Or now it's Kowalski for Congress. I own a couple URLs.
Well, they should all be pushing. They should all be pushing to that one, right? You put forwarding on there. Get on it. I hope he hung up and went to do that. Here's Andrew from DC on the IM. You can IM the show at majorityapp.com. I did the math. Assuming 6 feet between people's lines to get into Hannity's Yankees game, Fever Dream would be 11.88 miles, 237 blocks long. I mean, in some ways that's convenient because you wouldn't even have to take the subway to get up there. You could just start lining up somewhere down in like Soho. Side note, I'm a small business owner who applied for the PPP. The second my bank opened applications, fund ran out before they got a chance to review my application, burn it all to the ground. Yeah, that's the story I keep hearing from everybody. Hugo, 24. Why is Michael Tracy saying that the predicate to Mueller investigation has been proven false? Why is he still on this? He's an idiot who needs to build a Patreon account. I don't know. Jimmy Biffett. No, McKee made a good counter to Kyle's not voting for Biden strategy when she said Dem establishment doesn't care about winning. What about Dem voters? And does that matter? Also, after Bernie's loss, it'll be hard to invest in wanting Biden to win. Biden is a weak candidate, and I don't think Trump will lose support. His voters see what they want to see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Biden's the strongest candidate to come out of the primary, but it turned out he won. I think, this is going to be a referendum on Trump. And I think my instinct is to believe that there are more people interested in voting against Trump than there were even last time. And he only won by 70,000 votes last time in 3 states. So we'll see. Carol Baskin, I wonder if Tigers would like the taste of Joe Biden. Sean Hannity's beer straw. Do you think Hannity, Trump, and the GOP governors would be just as flippant about COVID-19 if it mainly killed young children instead of older people? Yes, I do. I think they would figure out a way of justifying any of it. Lest you're worried that we don't have testing, because testing is really, when I was saying this to Ben Dixon, testing is the only thing we can flatten the curve, and that's great. That means that our hospitals will be able to at least not be overrun by cases of COVID-19. But to actually go out and start to diminish the social distancing, we need to have another factor introduced, and that is testing. And once you test, you can say to 40%, 50% of the people, you're okay. You can go out. You can work these specific jobs. You can provide services for these people. Maybe it's not 40 or 50%. We don't know what the numbers are. And then, you go on to, do people have antibodies, antibody testing? And then you go on to, do people have some type of is there some type of natural thing that some people exhibit, physical trait that keeps them from getting the worst case scenario, COVID-19? Is there a disparity between the strands of COVID-19? These are all things that hopefully we're going to find down the road. And then a year out, 18 months out, you're going to find hopefully a vaccine. You'll get people vaccinated. But we need testing. And we should have testing by now. The rest of the world has been using it. But I think the story is that we wanted to monetize it in this country. And here's Donald Trump at his press show yesterday arguing that, we don't need testing.
It's because we have so many other tests and we don't even have to go through the laboratories. But the laboratories have tremendous additional capacity, and states feel free to use that capacity. Some in the media falsely reported this as a bad thing, when in fact it is a great thing, because it indicates that the states are moving to faster, more local testing solutions, including on-the-spot tests. So this drop in the utilization of commercial laboratories is an affirmation that testing, which is at an all-time high, is growing at a historic rate. In other words, the laboratories are great, but now we have forms of testing that are much quicker, much better, and we don't have to use the laboratories, but they're there, and they have a great capacity to do the work.
Don't you feel confident now, ladies and gentlemen, that Donald Trump looked at that testing information, what appears to be for the first time ever, during the course of reading out that prepared statement that somebody had written for him? The number of tests that are being performed at laboratories is actually going down. And supposedly it's because there is no one coordinating these laboratories to places where they need the tests. And there are shortages of testing apparatus, and there is no cohesive methodology for actually testing people. There's no cohesion. There's no planning here. The idea that states would have pre-existing apparatus to deal with a pandemic is absurd. It's absurd. That is why we had one on the national level. And it was completely eliminated by this administration, including John Bolton. This was a Republican project. Donald Trump does not have the brains or the awareness to say, oh, the pandemic thing, I've always said that's a huge waste. This is a Republican project. Get rid of the waste in government. If we're not using the pandemic apparatus today, it's wasteful. We'll ramp it back up when and if. It probably won't happen. That's basically what we're dealing with. Here's Donald Trump pretending that we are doing more testing than South Korea. We may be, but not nearly from a percentage per capita basis. Here he is from that same White House show.
Areas of our country that have been hot spots have done much more testing on a per capita basis than South Korea. We've done more than South Korea, and South Korea's done a good job, but we've done more.
You see how he narrows it to hotspot? If we take the pool of people that we're talking about and make it small enough, then on a per capita basis, we're doing more testing than North Korea. And for instance, let's say I had a one test available to me, and I say, on a per capita basis, I'm testing more than North Korea. And, you know, if you base it upon all the people in this attic I'm sitting in, I'm doing a 1-to-1 testing ratio. No country has done that. We're really doing great things here. There's nobody driving this bus, ladies and gentlemen. That's the problem. Here is Donald Trump now trying to, and again, I think like the clock is ticking on his ability to get away with this. We just heard from Kowalski in Grand Island, Nebraska. There are places you can shut down Omaha, you can shut down Lincoln. They don't have the density of a city like New York. But when you do have areas where there is some type of density, like at a meatpacking plant, you're going to have problems. Here's Donald Trump. He's at his press show that he puts on every day. A reporter asks him why you want to reopen the country without widespread testing. And here's Donald Trump explaining why you want to do that.
You mentioned I think you used the term clear scientific benchmarks on testing. And the main periscope that I think you guys are talking about is the ILL syndromic as well as the surveillance and the sentinel testing. Are you opening things up then without doing...
All right, can I just do a little reality check? You see how Donald Trump is nodding his head while the reporter is talking about the different standards of testing? And Trump is just pretending like he knows anything that this guy is saying. Go back. It's funny. I wish we could.
I wish it wasn't all about access, that you could just, someone could go in there, make up test names, and then be like, yeah, of course. And be like, no, those aren't real tests.
Right. Or or if the reporter just stopped and said, do you know what I'm talking about? And he goes, yes, of course. No, I mean, specifically, can you tell me what I'm talking about? That's my question. Can you tell me what I'm talking about? Go ahead.
The term clear scientific benchmarks on testing. And the main periscope that I think you guys are talking about is the ILL syndromic, as well as the surveillance and the sentinel testing. Are you opening things up then without doing, I just want to be clear, are you opening things up without doing widespread testing? Is that because you don't have the capacity, or you don't think it's necessary?
We do have the capacity, but you have states without any problem. You have states with few cases, and those few cases have healed. You have states with very little death, relatively speaking. As I said, one is too many, but you have states with very little, and frankly, they're at a point where they have almost nothing. So this is a much different case than a New York or New Jersey, where they're going through, frankly, they go through hell. And if you look at New York, I'm looking at bed count, because you have to look at bed count, and it's really dropped. We built the Javits Center with 2,900 beds, and it was... I mean, they built it in 4 days. They did an incredible job, the Army Corps of Engineers. It was not used very much. We sent the hospital ship in to New York Harbor, and it was not used. Then we went COVID, and it still was not used very much because the bed count has gone way down, way down.
When you see yourself getting back to campaigning,
this is not campaigning. I want to make the country better. I don't care about campaigning. This is about making our country better. I think this team has been incredible.
The idea that he knows any of what he's talking about there, that quote sounded almost identical to the one that he gave like in early February when he's like, we get 15 cases. They're mostly healed by now. If they start opening things up in a widespread manner, we're just going to be right back to where we were on March 13th within, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. It's just a matter of time. You need to have at least testing so that you have a sense of what the risk is, who are potential, who is potentially exposed, who can you send into certain areas to do some of the work and not have to worry that they're going around like Typhoid Mary. I mean, that's what you need. And the idea that there's very little death there, so we can fix that. It's about balance. So on, what was this, on Thursday? Wait, was it on Monday? When did they run this propaganda? Did people see this? We didn't see it the first day, did we? We didn't pull this. They aired a propaganda video at the White House presser on Monday. Pure propaganda video, like, North Korea style propaganda video. There wasn't people marching in goose step, but it was pretty close. And it turns out that they got this pure propaganda video from Sean Hannity's program that happened 3 weeks earlier. It was out of date too. Look, check this out. Media Matters put both of them up on screen simultaneously. This is pretty stunning.
Truly claim we have blood on our hands because we didn't take the virus seriously. Just go to Hannity.com. I have a whole list of everything that I put up there. The media mob, they shouldn't throw stones from their ivory glass towers. Take a look.
People should be more concerned right now with the flu in this country.
A lot of people are concerned about the coronavirus because they're hearing a lot of news about it right now. But the reality is, comparing it to the flu, for example, it's not even close to being at that stage.
What if it is worse? Is this a moment where maybe countries put politics aside, a little bit of pride aside, and do we have U.S. officials? Should U.S. professionals such as yourself get involved.
How worried should Americans be about coronavirus?
Coronavirus is not going to cause a major issue in the United States.
The U.S. State Department has now raised its China travel advisory now to level 4. Do not travel.
There you go. You took the entire half of the thing from Sean Hannity. And I love that Hannity played that clip from when he had Fauci on. That must have been right before he's basically go. This is basically the flu. Fauci still goes out there now and still has to deal with
one more thing that from that press conference that I had on Tuesday with John Carl saying it looked like a campaign ad, and Trump's team saying that they have more where that came from. They made it real quick themselves.
I watched it. So this is how they tried to wrap that up.
Yeah.
About the video, because I've never seen a video like that played in this room. It looks a bit like a campaign ad. Who produced that video for you?
That was done by a group in the office, and it was done we just put some clips together. I could give you, I'll bet you I have over 100 more clips, even better than them. They were just pieced together over the last 2 hours. That was just, we have far better than that. That's nothing compared to some of them.
This was produced here in the White House.
Yeah, this was done by Dan and a group of people, and they just put it together in a period of probably less than 2 hours.
Why do you feel need to do that?
Because we're getting fake news, and I like to have it corrected.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, pretty easy to put it together when it's already been produced and aired on Hannity.
I can sympathize with Dan Scavino there. Sometimes in the office, me and Matt find something where you ask if we made that, and we'll say, "Oh yeah, we did that."
Yeah, you guys told me you put that. That was the first time I saw that video. You claimed that you actually made the one that was on Hannity. Unbelievable. It's nuts. All right, just an update on a couple of things. Apparently, the TYT union basically is moving forward with TYT as of April 10th. And Donald Trump just tweeted out, states have to step up on their testing. He's just losing it. But, I mean, it doesn't matter. He's always lost it. Like, that's the thing. People ask, is Donald Trump falling apart? Yes, but it's the slowest falling apart in the world. He's still going to be falling apart, as they put him into the grave, whenever that is. Here's Anthony Fauci going on Fox. And it's almost like he goes on and it doesn't matter, right? Like they'll 5 minutes after he's gone, they'll revert back to telling their lies. But here is Laura Ingraham insisting that we really don't have to worry about this much. This is going to go away, right?
Dr. Fauci, on the question of a vaccine, we don't have a vaccine for SARS. I mean, they got close in mice. We don't have a vaccine for HIV. And life did go on, right? So the idea that we're definitely going to have a vaccine, we didn't really approach much else in the same way as we're pegging going back to normal with a vaccine, did we?
Well, no, but Laura, this is different. HIV/AIDS is entirely different. We don't have a vaccine for HIV/AIDS, but we have spectacularly effective treatment. People who invariably would have died years ago right now are leading essentially normal lives. SARS is a different story. SARS disappeared. We developed a vaccine. We were in the process of going through the various phases. We showed it was safe. We showed it induced a good response, and then SARS disappeared, and we didn't need to develop a vaccine for SARS. So I think it's a little bit misleading maybe to compare what we're going through now with HIV or SARS. They're really different.
But we don't know. This could disappear. I mean, SARS did pretty much disappear. This could as well, correct?
Yeah. Anything could, Laura, but I have to tell you, the degree of efficiency of transmissibility of this is really unprecedented in anything that I've seen. It's an extraordinarily efficient virus in transmitting from one person to another. Those kind of viruses don't just disappear.
Yeah, Dr. Fauci, I got to cut you off there. But as you leave, it's also possible, right? I mean, it's possible that aliens could come down from outer space and provide us with some type of immunity to COVID-19. I mean, that's possible, right? I mean, I know I've already let you off the show and cut your mic, but
anyway.
let's just say it's possible. It's possible.
Anyway, coming up next is Dr. Phil.
Right, exactly. Oh, do we have a clip of Dr. Phil?
Yeah.
We do?
Mm-hmm.
This guy. I never really dug into Dr. Phil because why would I? Why would anybody? I'll tell you something. Oprah, has she come out yet and said anything? Because she's basically the one who unleashed this Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil. I'd like to find out more about Dr. Oz too. But Dr. Phil turns out not a medical doctor. All right. He's got a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of North Texas. He no longer has a license to practice in any state. Apparently in 1988, the Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists determined that he had hired a former patient without, quote, proper separation between termination of therapy and the initiation of employment. All right. Apparently he was also brought up on ethics charges in 1989 and in 2008 without for practicing psychology without professional license or certification. He surrendered his Texas license in 2006. And he also just without actually being a doctor, sold a weight loss milkshakes back in 2003. And apparently his TV guests have to sign paperwork saying they're only receiving advice because he doesn't have a license to practice psychology. But this is what he can do. Go on and say, I'm a doctor on Laura Ingraham and start talking about things. I mean, you're literally hearing from Dr. Fauci, who has been working in infectious diseases for 30 years on a public policy level. And then you're talking to a guy who's like a doctor in the same way that Seb Gorka is. Put this up.
250 people a year die from poverty. And the poverty line is getting such that more and more people are going to fall below that because the economy is crashing around us. And they're doing that because people are dying from the coronavirus. I get that. But look, the fact of the matter is we have people dying. 45,000 people a year die from automobile accidents, 480,000 from cigarettes, 360,000 a year from swimming pools. But we don't shut the country down for that. But yet we're doing it for this, and the fallout is going to last for years because people's lives are being destroyed.
You know, I remember back in the early aughts when that big infectious people dying of swimming pools disease was passed around. And we were very afraid, but we just worked right through it. And of course, we have spent untold resources to get people to not smoke. And we have a lot more people dying, or a lot less people dying of cigarette smoking. But does he not get the idea of the infectious disease part, the contagious aspect of this? Bueller? Anybody? Matt? Brendan?
My uncle died of a swimming pool, so I'm a little sensitive on the topic.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I apologize. But they are putting this guy on as if he's a real doctor and exclaim and missing the whole part. I mean, look, we've had how many people have died now in the course of a month or so. 25,000 more at this point. 4,000 people died yesterday, 4,600. And this is with all these stay-at-home practices in place. You're talking about 250,000 people a year at this pace. Now, granted, a lot of those folks had contracted before the stay-at-home orders. But, man, I can't even believe that people look on themselves in the mirror and go out and say this stuff.
This is like Fox News's game, though, is to keep appealing to the folks that are insulated from the worst effect or what's going on in the world the most, and just telling them that, you know, we should, like, the fact that they take credit, like, they act that because we've flattened this curve, it's an overreaction. That leap is very frustrating to me, and that's what all these people are doing. That, like, oh look, 200,000 people didn't die. I guess we overreacted.
Exactly. It is the functional equivalent of saying, like, I completely overreacted when I got fire insurance because my house didn't catch on fire. The reason why we are looking at the numbers we're looking at are because of the actions that we're taking. And again, the impetus to take those actions has not gone away. The impetus has not gone away. It's just still there. Nothing has changed.
You don't even have to use a metaphor. You can just use the coronavirus and use it as you as an individual, right? I've been in home for 14 days and I haven't got coronavirus. This has all been an overreaction. Well, the reason you haven't got coronavirus is because you haven't been walking around outside.
Exactly. Here is Dr. Oz. What did Dr. Oz do? Who is Dr. Oz? Do we know? He's just gone there and we just assume that he's just like, here is a Dr. Oz citing one study that I think is, you know, at best inconclusive. I don't know that it's been peer reviewed or anything like that, but a 2 to 3% rise in mortality, as if it's nothing. And I don't even know what 2 to 3% rise in mortality means relative to what. I guess he's saying that everybody stays at home and just the kids go to school. Right? Like, and I can't quite tell. But go ahead.
Dr. Oz, help us. Well, first, we need our mojo back. Let's start with things that are really critical to the nation where we think we might be able to open without getting into a lot of trouble. I tell you, schools are a very appetizing opportunity. I just saw a nice piece in The Lancet arguing that the opening of schools may only cost us 2 to 3% in terms of total mortality. And, you know, that's any life is a life lost. But to get every child back into a school where they're safely being educated, being fed, and making the most out of their lives with a theoretical risk in the backside, it might be a trade-off some folks would consider. But you need to get industry back, supply lines. I mean, things that we can do without putting the nation at risk, Dr. Oz.
Okay. So apparently he misread the study. And what it actually talks about is that UK researchers, The Lancet is a British medical publication, they found that closing the schools without any other mitigation measures, in other words, if they closed the schools and everybody went out to bars and whatnot, that would only reduce the deaths by 2 to 4% that are taking place there. So you cannot apply that to, in other words,
reverse
you can
engineer
close
it.
the schools, but if you keep going out and about socializing with people, all that happens is that the more effective, sort of transmission conduit of the schools aren't there. And so you would reduce deaths 2 to 4%.
They need to give him a break. He's been I think they're just wearing him out a little bit.
Well, he's probably been in the ER just caring for patients.
Right, exactly. He's probably exhausted. All the work that he's been doing on the front lines out there, Dr. Oz, all hands on deck situation there. Somebody's got to get on Fox quick. We need somebody at Fox. Stat. But where is Oprah? Honestly, like, doesn't Oprah have an obligation now to say something? She created both these guys, right?
That's far as I know.
Yes.
Doesn't she have an obligation? I mean, do you guys not think that she does? I sort of think that she...
The Democrats are grooming her for 2024, so I don't know if we're going to get a lot of real criticism of Oprah's
Oprah doesn't
role in
owe
all
you
this.
anything, Sam.
Oh, my God. We talked about this story a couple of days ago. Apparently, under the administration of Rick Scott, who is now a senator from Florida, was the governor, and prior to that was an executive who sat over a company that paid a record number of fines because of them defrauding Medicaid. I'm sure he was not implicated in it whatsoever when it was just a coincidence that he pled the fifth. I think it was 50 times. Was it 50 times during the course of that investigation? So Rick Scott, a very wealthy guy, one of the things that he really wanted to make sure was that they didn't have to pay out any unemployment benefits. Because when you're someone like Rick Scott, the number of unemployed is not as important as the statistics that represent the number of unemployed. And there is a delta between the number of people who have lost their jobs and the number that you report as unemployed. And that what creates that delta are roadblocks that you put up to make it that much harder for people to get unemployment. And then even when you do, you pay them a fraction of the money that they need to live. Well, that's all well and good when the economy is recovering from a recession, when you're in the 7th year of a recovery. But it's not so good when you all of a sudden have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, 825,000 applicants in Florida since mid-March. Let's have Ron DeSantis, the guy who kept all the beaches open in Florida, tell you how many of those applicants have actually been sent unemployment checks.
Payments to Floridians in reappointment assistance totaling almost $50 million. This includes 33,623 individual Floridians who applied for reemployment of benefits after this economic upheaval in the middle of March.
Okay, 33,000 unemployed Floridians getting checks from the state of Florida. 825,000 have applied since mid-March. There are 800,000 people unemployed in Florida getting $0. This is what we keep saying over and over again, is that there's no apparatus to deal with this type of stuff. Never mind the money, there's no apparatus. They built a system that made it impossible to access your unemployment checks. And it's working as designed. They only have 33,000 unemployed in Florida. They're doing great. One would expect that they would have close to 1 million. And now you have so many layoffs in the media. I'm sure the number of people in Florida who realize this is basically the Republican game plan is not that many. It really is nuts. We mentioned Dr. Seb Gorka earlier. I know you guys played a video of Seb Gorka getting punked yesterday. That was pretty funny. When he's not getting punked, he's actually just involved in the punking of America, I guess, in some way, right? I mean, this is one good hoax deserves another. Here is Seb Gorka talking to one of his callers. And look, we take calls. We don't screen them. Anybody could call in, but here is Gorka. He's dealing with a caller who's talking all in Q code. Just check this out.
I'm just wondering, because I'm unhappy. I'm wondering if maybe we're going to have that Q day tomorrow on the 17th of April, because I have a question for the president. You want to hear what the question is?
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to know when the Mally's candy store in Cleveland, Ohio is going to be open so that the adult kids may have their dark chocolate rabbits. That's what I'm unhappy about. And I did text the president on Easter, and I didn't get a response yet. So maybe it will happen tomorrow.
You texted the president about chocolate rabbits?
Yeah, and I didn't go to jail.
Why would you go to jail?
One never knows.
No, I'm asking you, why would you go to jail?
I wouldn't go. I might like the bread and water, but I would run the other way. I've already been there a few times in my life, so I know better.
And why are chocolate rabbits so important, Gertrude?
Because we adults from the senior center like dark chocolate rabbits.
Yeah, I think we probably got some bigger fish to fry. Thank you, Gertrude.
Really wants to get to the. I mean, and this guy's been promoting Q, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was an early promoter of Q, I believe.
Seems like we've run its course. I've checked my videos, and Q's just not driving the traffic that it used to.
It makes you wonder how much of these people are just out to lunch, people in retirement homes that somehow have access to a phone. And because that's what that sounds like to that. Maybe she was speaking in code and chocolate rabbits is something, a reference to something. But I think it literally is people in the retirement home want these chocolate rabbits and they're unable to get them from the local place.
And so they are texting.
And so they're trying to get
the president.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to the highest authority.
I gotta load up my sound machine because this is when we definitely needed some of that. Like, that's the closest I got.
Gorka did. QAnon. This is from March 27th, 2019. The Daily Beast. QAnon turns on Sebastian Gorka after he calls them garbage. So he's had apparently a love-hate relationship with them.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that hasn't worked out for him. Yeah. This is pretty funny. Dave Rubin thought that he was getting one of the Fox's 5 on his show. Rubin has really gone full on. And I think that's why we don't talk about him as much anymore, because he's just now an average right winger, essentially movement conservative, who he's basically turned into Alan Combs. And I don't know if people remember who Alan Combs was. In fact, he's far worse than Alan Combs. But Alan Combs on Hannity, he was just sort of the foil who would be there to prove the conservative point all the time, and had some liberal bona fides. And his radio show after the fact was not so bad, but Dave Rubin has basically he maintains. I don't know. Does he maintain any positions of like a traditional liberal, I guess, as a way of basically promoting Donald Trump? And he brought on Dana Perino, who was the communications director or spokesperson for George W. Bush at one point. And here's Dave Rubin trying to say that the media wants people to suffer because it's bad for Trump. And when you can't get someone from Fox's The 5 to agree with you on your crazy pro-Trump theory, then I think you have a problem.
Do you sense, though, that some in the media are rooting for the collapse of the economy, and just that they view this as, we didn't get Trump on Russia, we didn't get Trump on Ukraine, impeachment, blah,
I don't
blah,
think
blah.
so.
That this, no. You don't think so? Huh.
No, I don't. I don't. I mean, I consume a ton of news. I'm not naive to the biases, but there's a lot of problems out there. I mean, I just like the food lines It's just the video you can see from overhead, a 3-mile long car line to get food in Miami, a 6-mile long car line to get food in San Antonio. I mean, those are just facts. Those are happening. And I don't think that they root for the failure. They might root for President Trump to lose, but I don't think that they root for failure for people. I really don't.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I mean, I see some people that are pretty mainstream voices that it's almost like they just want this thing to continue.
Well, I mean, that was true
maybe,
during the financial crisis of 2008, right? They were like, oh, now. Mm-hmm. But it was like, well, if you didn't shore up the banks and you ended up with something worse than the Great Depression, what would have been the better choice? And again, presidents can't worry about that. President Trump has to, again, lift his gaze and not worry about the headline of the day. Lift his gaze, look out. People are going to judge this for years and years and years. Forget about what they're going to say within the next 24 hours. Are you making the best decisions with the information you have at the time on behalf of the nation? And can you defend that decision? Then that's a decision you should make. You should defend it as much as you can and promote it, whatever you need to do. But I wouldn't get so mired in, oh, they're against me, because I think self-pity in politics is pretty pathetic and pitiful. And you just need to just have to try harder to win the arguments. It just takes a lot more effort. That's why I always tell companies, if you think you're going to have some problems, always hire somebody that's worked in Republican politics or communications, because guaranteed they've had to work harder.
Yeah, I mean, look at the overtime that Dave Rubin's having to put in there to push his theory that the mainstream media is rooting on people, that the economic crisis is fake, and the mainstream media is just propping it up. And the look on his face was just hearing about the bread lines.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch Rubin in a two box, because usually it's just the shot of him or his guest,
right?
Whereas like now I just see this. And I see like the little, like, you know, like the wind up monkey with the cymbals like going off in his head.
What would have been the better choice? And again, presidents can't worry about that. President Trump has to, again, lift his gaze.
Completely lost, like a deer in a headlight. Like, what am I supposed to do now? She's not actually carrying. She's not.
She's not carrying my water, and she's much smarter than me.
Yes, she seems to know what she's talking about. All I've been doing is just basically texting Ben Shapiro and asking him when we can get together again.
Yeah,
Rubin just wants to be on the 5. That's what that's about.
In volume 2 of these Perino interviews, the one before this, basically it's Rubin complaining about why he only gets invited on Fox News and not CNN and places like that. And Dana Perino is as interested in that as she is in that her answer to that question.
I wonder who she was doing a favor for. I gotta go do this.
He talks about her like he sees her in the commissary at Fox News, like they're colleagues now. So I think he must like twisted her arm or something. Like, hey Dana, will you come on my show? Just Skype me. It's easy. You have no reason to now.
You're at home.
She had been saying like, Dave, I never get to LA. And
right,
now,
exactly. I'm so busy. I can't possibly do it. But now it's like, I got nothing to do. Oh dear. Should we play this Dennis Miller thing? We just is sort of a callback. People will enjoy this.
One thing though, sorry, before we move on, Rubin's book is out in 11 days.
It is?
They didn't push back the pub date. So April 28th, we're going to have to come up with some sort of big event.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize.
We should do like a group reading on that or something.
People should pre-order Michael's book so we can see if we can get that competitive with Rubin's.
Yeah, when is Michael's book coming out?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'm sure we'll. As this gets on, it'll be like 50 Cent versus who did he have? Brendan, do you remember who this was? It 50 Cent and Kanye. They had a big whose album will sell more.
Oh yeah.
So maybe
that was when we were in high school, I think.
Yeah.
Michael's doing a very good job of letting people know when the book is coming out. I had no idea. Let's take one more story. This is Kelly Loeffler, who she is the interim senator from Georgia. She is up for re-election, or really actually election for the first time. She was appointed I think it was it Purdue that resigned?
Yes.
And
oh no, Isaacson. Excuse me.
Purdue is up in the fall, and Isaacson resigned. Loeffler was appointed. The hardcore Trumpies wanted Collins from the House. He's still running against her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she now is in a little bit of hot water because she sold off all her stocks after getting a briefing about a coronavirus back in February. And of course, it is a complete lie made up by socialists, she says.
This is a political attack that is designed to distract from the issue at hand and to use this outbreak to play politics. We have addressed this and taken extraordinary measures to make sure that we can't be attacked for our success. This gets at the very heart of why I came to Washington, to defend free enterprise, to defend capitalism, and this is a socialist attack. We have taken extraordinary measures, and I am focused solely on working for Georgians. I've been doing that 7 days a week around the clock. And it's my honor to be here and serve, and that's why
What are these extreme measures she keeps talking about? We have taken extreme measures to what? To figure out how to maximize our portfolio. Her husband is the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. Go ahead.
Stepped out of the private sector.
Well, the accusation of insider trading was based on you receiving federal information, and then there were stock sales made in you and your husband's name. But again, the question was, did you liquidate those investments since you said that?
That's right, we have. I said we've taken extraordinary measures to take that off the table as an attack area, and we're done with it, and we're moving on. I've been focused on Georgians 24/7, addressing this crisis, and we're ready to get back to work safely.
Okay. Senator, thanks for coming on the program this morning.
Whoa! She went really hard at her. Oh, okay. So you sold all your stocks and you bought stocks based upon this information, and now you've liquidated them. So does that mean that you're going to have to not be able to depreciate your losses over time? That's really tough.
I like that the reason she came to Washington was because she was being attacked for being so successful as a capitalist.
Yeah, that's pretty hard. It's a good thing that she's in Washington protecting people. I'm here for everyone who is a millionaire or married to the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange.
Or someone who owns a WNBA team.
Exactly. Is that right?
Yeah, she owns the Atlanta WNBA team.
The Atlanta lean-ins.
Should we do the Dennis Miller thing?
It's up to you.
I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. Let's go to take a couple of phone calls. Round it out with some calls here. Calling from, let's see here. Who's been online for a while? Calling from a 608 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? $608. 608. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, I'm still on. All right, let's put you back in there. Calling from a 914 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Come on, Sam. Come on, Sam.
Jeremo!
Sammy! How dare you call yourself a downer?
Oh, really? Is that why you're here? You're calling to tell me not to be not to put myself down?
You're a realist. You are a realist. You were the only one to tell us the fascists are coming. The fascists are coming.
Okay.
That's not why I'm calling, though. That's not why I'm calling.
Okay. Why are you calling?
Sammy.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the hashtag group, Go Change the World?
I have not. I'm not even sure I've heard of hashtag groups.
Oh, come on. Well, I'm not. All I know is hashtag Go Change the World. And I saw it on my Facebook page, and I was looking at these numbers, and they were saying in the states of Wisconsin, Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, they said Trump won by so many votes. And then they said how many Afro-Americans did not vote in those states.
Right.
I couldn't believe the numbers.
Yep.
I actually called Michael yesterday. I was going to talk to him about it, but I'm so glad I got you today. But I tried to do some research on this group, but my problem is I only saw a picture of about 30 people of the group, and I got to do more research on it. But
well, I mean, the reality is that we've talked about this, that there's a couple of different ways, a couple of different paths to winning Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. But part of it was a function of voter suppression. Part of it was a function that African-American voters were not mobilized in those states to the numbers that we need to overcome the deficit in the rural areas. You need voters coming from Detroit. You need voters coming from Milwaukee. You need voters coming from Philadelphia, and to overcome a deficit you might have in rural voters.
But wait a minute. The numbers are astronomical. Listen. In the state of Georgia, Trump won by 211,000 votes. Supposedly, there were 530,000 people, Afro-Americans, that didn't vote. That is unbelievable.
There's a lot of people who don't vote,
but whatever,
white and black.
What?
There's a lot of people who don't vote, white and black.
Right, of course. But the problem is that why aren't African Americans voting?
I don't know. Why doesn't anybody vote?
I just don't understand that. I know there's voter suppression, but what are the reasons why African Americans are not voting?
I mean, I think there's probably a myriad of them that range from a sense that they have been in some respects screwed over by politicians for generations.
Right, I agree. It's not motivation. It's they've been screwed over, and the Democratic Party's not searching out to get these people to vote. And I tell you what, right now, I promise you, I'm going to pick on one state, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to try to get people to vote. And you have helped me to
Jeremy,
come to that.
Did you listen to the Howard Bryan interview that we played Wednesday?
Yes, and I think you played that. I think you actually played that for me.
I played that for you?
Yeah, it was right on exactly what I want to talk about.
Exactly. There you go.
See?
You're welcome.
You are a realist. You are a positive person.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. That's
Don't get down. Don't get down.
I'm not down. I mean, I'm down,
And
but I'm not that down.
I don't know what's going on, but what's going on with the app? I can't find my membership to renew my membership. The date when I have to renew I can't find it.
Well, go log in on your
on?
computer, Jeremy. I don't know what's happening with the app with you. I don't know, but you go log on in a computer and you can find your whole membership info there.
I think you're trying to get rid of me.
No, of course not. Are you kidding? I'm so glad to hear from you. I haven't heard from you in a long time.
Well, I tell you what, I really hope you can do this. Could you have like a 30-second countdown where people get 30 seconds to ask your question and then you get a minute to reply?
Yes.
Otherwise,
all right, bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Good idea. Let's keep it quick, folks. Let's keep it quick. Good idea. Call from 570 area code. You quick. Got to be quick.
Yeah, is that me?
Yeah, who's this?
Hi, this is Brian in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, kind of in the Rust Belt. A long-time listener. I'm really happy to have gotten in to speak to you. So I'll keep it really quick. I've been paying attention to the Twitter sphere, obviously, and also, all the people that live around me. And it seems to me my comment is about the left and understanding power.
Hold on for 1 second. Hold on for 1 second. Whatever you're talking through is broken. And so it's very, very buzzy. Back off just a little bit from it.
Okay. Can you hear me better this way?
Yeah, just back off just a little bit.
Okay. So.
No, back off a little bit more.
How's this? Is this better?
Yeah, it actually is. We'll raise your volume.
Okay. So my question is it time to begin having a conversation among the left in general about how we fundamentally misunderstand electoral politics and tend to react very emotionally when we don't get the electoral victories. I feel like everybody's kind of missing the bigger picture with Biden and Bernie Sanders and the inroads that we have made, and I feel like we are kind of missing the moment. And I feel like we should be having a legit conversation about how we work inroads in the Democratic Party to get power instead of focusing on strictly policy objectives.
I think that's a valid conversation. I would give it another couple of weeks, let people, calm down a little bit and sort of just adjust. I mean, it's a tense time, but yeah, I think, I think that's an accurate assessment. I mean, there's been times where there have been bigger pushes, and particularly, I think one of the great things that came out of the Sanders campaign was a broad-based sort of activation of people to get involved in politics and try and take over their Democratic parties and their local ones. And I think there's a lot of time for that. And I agree with you. I don't know if I would say that it's just emotions. I mean, people have these ideas that like, oh, I've gamed this out. This is what's going to happen. We're going to, Biden's going to lose. Then Trump will be there. Then they will lose in 2022. And a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House will stop anything that he wants to do. And then in 2024, what's going to happen is, AOC or, somebody from the local DSA will become president, and we will have Medicare for all by 2025. Like that, like I can't tell you how many emails I've had where people have plotted this whole thing out with such assurance. Yet we've literally gone through this experiment just now, which is Donald Trump wins, Hillary Clinton loses, and we get Joe Biden. I mean, and so, but yes, I agree. I think I think that is a conversation that, people need to start having, which is like, yeah, you lost. We lost. And now the question is like, all right, what do you do when you don't have the numbers that you wanted to have? And, everybody knew. But I got to go under the new Jeremo edict. Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Like working that audio stuff on the fly. Calling from a 201 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Who's this?
Hi, Sam. I'm Christian. I'm from New Jersey. I kind of also wanted to talk about the same thing the last caller talked about, which is actual power that leftists have within the Democratic Party. One of the things that I think became abundantly clear is that the left just has no leverage within the party. I mean, the only establishment person I can think of that endorsed Sanders is de Blasio, and de Blasio is not even liked within the establishment. And I wanted to know.
Wait, what's your name again?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your name again?
Christian.
Just keep your phone just a little bit further away from your mouth, if you will.
So sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So I guess what I wanted to talk about was what do you think is the guide to trying to get that leverage? I mean, just recently I've been hearing about progressives like Tammy Baldwin, but I've never heard of her before all of this VP talk. And I just wanted to hear what you think is the best way forward to try to gain that leverage.
I mean, I think it takes time. Tammy Baldwin is a good example of somebody who is I think for, broad aspirations of the left is probably not as left as people want, but within the context of what we have within our politics. I mean, I personally believe that we should be pushing the envelope, but that we should be aware that we're pushing the envelope, and that there also needs to be a simultaneous track where you are, I don't know if I would call it incrementalism, but it would be somewhere between incrementalism and other and stuff that is more of a sort of a dramatic change. And I don't, Bernie was not as dramatic of a departure as I think he is portrayed. But I also think that, like, we're dealing with two different dynamics here. One is the idea of a left set of policy proposals and ideas and things that we want in terms of, material benefits for people. And the other is the Venn diagram covers this on some level, but not totally. An anti-establishment populism on some level. And I think that for politicians, and people can complain about, like, oh, you're worried about rudeness, but I'm worried about people getting health care. Yes, it would be great if everybody prioritized things in the same way that I do. And it would be great. You run into this in any type of human endeavor. I mean, my attitude when I was an actor for a long time was like, I'm not kissing anybody's ass. I'm here, you judge me and my work based upon me and my work. And to the rest of you, like, I'll go into, I used to pitch scripts. And, I would go into the room and I would basically, wanted to make sure that by the time I left, these people understood that I thought they were idiots. And I didn't care. You see my writing, there are people who appreciate it and, hire me to write a script. And I found out after a while that, people don't like, most people, even if they, it may be the case that these people were idiots and they didn't know a good joke when they saw it, but they're in the position of power. And the question is, like, how can I come in and get that joke into a script or get the script deal without having to compromise my content? And the way that I realized at one point that I could do that is just to go in and not have to prove to them that I thought they were idiots and not have to attack them because of where they were, but take advantage of what I perceived as my, superiority to them. And I think on some level, there needs to be a prioritization of what is most crucial for the left in any given fight. And sometimes swallow some of the stuff that isn't so crucial. Right? Like, that's basically my point. And, and I don't want to hyperinflate the importance of any one thing, but it's really, I'm trying to make more of an illustration. So when you talk about attacking, we're going to show the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment a thing or two, this and that. I just don't know if that was as valuable at that time to say stuff like that. I don't think that that's what, I'm just using that as something that's an illustration because it's easy to use it as an illustration. But I think, I also happen to think that, like, opening the campaign with a speech about that was doing work selling democratic socialism, as opposed to just saying it's FDR, I'm an FDR Democrat. Who cares about the label? To me, it doesn't matter.
I completely agree with you.
And so, that's just my opinion. Other people can have other opinions, but I think, that's what's going to happen. I appreciate.
But what do you? Sorry.
Quick.
Just real quick. What do you make of then someone like Warren, who I think embraced the things you're talking about, right? Maybe not as revolutionary, maybe trying to fight for the same things, and then you have pundits and people in general who are saying, well, if Warren is promising me the same thing as Bernie, and she's not as, I guess, revolutionary, then why vote for Bernie? And I think, don't you think that's a fundamental problem then that you have, when you try to have insurgent Democrats try to be more palatable?
I do not share the cynicism about Warren that a lot of people, in these circles do. I think we would be infinitely better off with Warren as the nominee from a policy perspective than Joe Biden. One thing though, I will say, let me temper that by just saying, and this isn't an ideological assessment. I think she's really bad at public-facing politics. I think she has a tin ear, and I think that my only concern with her as the nominee would be that I have not seen any evidence whatsoever of a basic political instinct and an awareness of what she's doing. And I suspect it also comes as part of a disregard for that kind of politics. So I do think that she is, more suited, frankly, to, I think she does a good job as senator of Massachusetts. I think she's probably, would make a great Treasury secretary. But the biggest revelation for me during the course of that campaign was just like, and I don't know what it's attributable to. I like her policy prescriptions. They don't necessarily always go as far as I want them to, but within the limitations of what is available to us today, I think they're sufficient. But her political instincts, I think, are much worse than I had thought.
Makes sense. Thanks, Sam.
Appreciate the call. All right, we got time for one more call. Calling from a 408 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Sarah from Indiana.
Sarah from Indiana. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I called in last week.
Oh, got to be quick, Sarah. I'm going to try and take another call because I know don't update us on shoplifting.
Right.
Yeah, I think we already got that down.
So for a quick topic, I just want to talk about the anti-shoplifting propaganda that came up in IM later that show.
You know what, Sarah? That is the anti-shoplifting propaganda. Let me just wrap it. Let me button it. Okay. You're going to say, and I did not read any of the pro or anti-shoplifting propaganda, but it is the case that in some instances, the people who end up paying the most for that shoplifting are people who are just going in and working, and sometimes they get fired. I worked at a
well, look, when some cable pundit says airline stocks falling will hurt workers the most, you recognize it as propaganda to protect capitalists. But when IM tells you shoplifting leads to workers getting laid off, you just accept it, no question.
No, I didn't say I accepted no question.
For a tiny proportion of the stores shrinkage, and any manager knows the way to prevent lifting is more staff. And every store is already as understaffed as it is possible to still operate with. And you, unlike anyone who's worked in retail, knows that. If your manager is telling you that you're being laid off for shoplifting, they're lying to you.
No, I guess it's a function of the store, and I guess if it's a big one, you also said you had no problem with doing a mom and pop store, and I can tell you that I worked in a place literally called the 5 and 10 in downtown Worcester, and it was when there was shoplifting that took place when the manager wasn't there or something like that, we all got in trouble for it. Now, that was 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Not the fault of shoplifters.
Okay. So, well, I agree.
Anyway, I can also talk more about sustainable food waste, but maybe not on this call.
Yeah, let's do it another time, but I appreciate the call, Sarah. I have never heard the term of anti-shoplifting propaganda, but fair enough. Yes, I suppose it would be interesting to look at a study about this and a specific list of it. Of, what stores have what policies. But I don't feel like that we have been on an anti-shoplifting jihad on this program. In fact, I would say the only time it's come up was both times that she's called. Calling from a 415 area code, you are the final call of the week.
Hey, Sam, this is H. Ross Perot calling you from heaven.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, now's the time to say, where is that third party? I mean, this is a huge opportunity. I mean, remember, I gave you Bill Clinton, and I think that you should really get some good candidates in there. I mean, right now we got Donald Trump. That boy ain't right. And we need to do something, really bold. I mean, who are some of your suggestions for third-party candidates?
Well, seeing as how the most successful third-party attempts were waged by yourself, it's obviously got to be a billionaire.
And who's your favorite billionaire who could take out Donald Trump?
Oprah.
There you go. She's black. She brought us Dr. Phil. Oh, forget that. And she's also the kind of person who's going to bring this country together, and she's going to give us some kind of hope. I mean, you get a test. You get a test. Everyone gets a test. This is what we need. And I could bring some charts and graphics. Well, that's not right. I'm dead. But what we could do is we could have an entire whole group of people working together on the Oprah team, and that would be the key. And she could be a vice president, but I don't know. I'm thinking this is the key.
Dead Ross Perot, thank you for that. Yeah, what a show this is. All right. We're going to do 5 IMs and get out of here. Karaoke, keep in mind the current unemployment numbers don't factor in a ton of people who have been unable to apply because the systems are still overwhelmed. Yes, and the people who have applied this week. Joe Exotic, these state compacts seem very significant in a long-term structural way. Am I insane for thinking that? No, I don't think it's necessarily the case, but I think it's very possible. Colin from Nebraska, Omaha shut down right before St. Patrick's Day, and the limit of gatherings was 10 or less, so we lucked out. Parks were closed a week ago since people are still going out. Fart Face, what do you think of David Dazen's criticism of Bernie and Nathan Robinson here? No. Sanders voted for a $4.5 trillion bailout of the biggest companies in America, betraying every principle he's claimed to have in his. He helped his high school Chuck Schumer get it passed, but well, I don't know what he's responded to. They put Jamie Dimon and Michael Bloomberg in the cabinet, and then VP Elizabeth Warren would be put out to defend it as just hiring people with inside knowledge. I find that hard to believe. I think Dayen is being a little bit hyperbolic there, but I mean, I think that Sanders did basically provide some measure of cover for this bill, but I also think that people were jammed up. Binder Dad, old Matt on Twitter, new rule: if you left New York City during the pandemic, you don't get to come back. Your thoughts? Sorry. Cosmo Myers, the death total in China just randomly shot up. Was there an investigative report? I imagine they're starting to release it now. Matt from Mass. Hey, Sam, let Andy know I thought he was hilarious even before I saw him on your show. Also, his segments with you are great. On that note, I got a joke for you. Laugher curve, more like laughing stock. Flammaroom. How do you feel about voting for Biden? But what about volunteer? And I know how you feel about voting for Biden, but what about volunteering and donating? Yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's hard to get people to go out and do that. But I mean, I would, I'd be just as inclined to, well, I don't know about that. I need to think about that. But I think, look, we want to defeat Trump. So I think it's a harder ask to get people to do that, but I think it's not a bad thing. Let me put it that way. Mikey B, Nassim Talib points on GMO COVID-19 are good. These are fat-tailed risk and poorly understood how bad the downside can get there. The first principle needs to be abundant precaution. Fair enough. The other Biden, wait, is Trump really comparing us to North Korea for COVID-19 testing? Beat the Reaper. Mehdi Hassan with Sold Out O'Brien does a good job on this week's Deconstructive, critiquing the White House press corps inability to oppose Trump's BS. Desperate Koala, Sam, I never realized how ruggedly hot you are without seeing you with a beard brings a whole new dimension to the post. Okay, right. Thank you. And the final I am of the day, Rick from Florida. The sad reality is the Republicans are sort of right. America needs to get back to work because their policies have left them living paycheck to paycheck. But in order to do that safely in a meaningful way, they would have had to been proactive about preventing the virus from spreading initially, which could have only done with a comprehensive and fully coordinated federal response, which was never going to happen with this administration. I am terrified how things are going to play out over the next 7 months. Hang in there. Stay safe. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive